Considering our existing model code of conduct, everybody knows that election is going to be announced shortly for the state of Manipur. As soon as it's announced, code of conduct will be in effect. Now, what is this model code of conduct? Knowing what model code of conduct means is very much needed for the general public. Code of conduct is a set of norms or rules. If asked, how it comes into being? Various political parties, in collaboration with ECI, laid down norms and rules to facilitate the successful conduct of elections. Important thing is to achieve free and fair election. Everyone involved, including parties or contesting candidates, should get a level playing field. That is, when no one is above another and there is free and fair transparent election, and when they got elected, they get their rightful positions. Now, let's talk about enforcement. Enforcement. How long will it be enforced? Code of conduct will be in operation as soon as ECI announces the election dates. Since this time it's an assembly election, so it will be in effect until the election process ends completely. By completion of election process, it doesn't mean the announcement of election results. Even if the election results are announced, there is election process. ECI will separately give a schedule. Until the schedule ends, MCC will be in effect. Now, let's discuss about the legal status, legal backing of MCC. In reality, MCC is not something to be enforced by law. However, how it can be done is, there are a lot of provisions in the MCC. If MCC are not followed, one can be penalized under IPC, CRPC, RP Act, etc. If a candidate or even a party outrightly violates the MCC, there are provisions where the ECI can withdraw its symbol. Now, like I said before, even though MCC doesn't have legal backing, that is, MCC is not fully an act, even though MCC is not an act, offenders can be prosecuted under the IPC 1860, CRPC 1973 and PR Act 1951. Next, let's see who falls under this MCC. Obviously, all political parties, candidates, then public servants. Next, any organizations, committee, corporations funded by central or state government, half or fully. Most important thing everyone should know, other persons apart from political parties and candidates, maybe NGOs or local clubs. When they do election-related activities, will it fall under MCC? Yes, it will. How it will come under MCC is, if any NGOs, when they want to do election-related activities, they can be given permission, subject to, even though they got permission, they cannot do things such as, nothing can be spoken of relating to religion or religious grounds. If done, they can penalize for violation under PR Act or under IPC. Secondly, no one can directly attack on candidates or anyone's personal life. Can court actions, deeds referring from past records. But attacks on personal life is totally not acceptable, completely in violation of MCC. Then, by the authorities, that is concerned DEOs, can take videography of any of these election-related activities. And if violations are found, those offenders can be prosecuted. Next, let me come to what kind of provisions are there in MCC. It is divided into 8 parts. Part 1 includes the minimum standard of good behaviors of candidates, political parties and their supporters. That is, things to follow when they run the election, do's and don'ts, etc. For example, one political party candidate can quote past policies and programs to another parties or candidates, but no personal attacks. Part 2 and 3. This relates with public meetings and processions. In this, things to be noted by parties and common peoples are, if any parties or candidates want to do meeting or processions, permissions need to be taken from DEOs and police authorities with time and place, like this or like that. If a procession is to be organized, beforehand, organizers should ensure that there is no other processions for other parties or candidates. Lastly, carrying and burning effigies representing members of other political group candidate are not allowed. Then, here comes part 4 and 5. In part 4 and 5, on polling day or polling booth, Do's and don'ts of political parties or candidates mentioned here clear-cut. Part 6. In this Part 6, there are observers who are appointed by ECI. They will also come to our state. All candidates or parties can raise their grievances to this observer's notice. Part 7. Part 7 is the most important one in MCC. In this Part 7, mainly it deals with the party in power, that is in government. In this Part 7, it says mainly about the ministers in government, about their visits, accommodation, transportation, what kind of announcement of new schemes can be done or not. Lastly, here comes Part 8. Mainly in this Part 8, it will deal with election manifesto, those promises that are going to be made by candidates or parties to public. Do's and don'ts of manifestos. What promises can or can't be made in the manifestos are clearly mentioned in this part. In addition to that, copies, election manifestos of any candidate or parties should be given to CEO for checking purposes. Then, in the next part, let me mention some code of practices, electoral practices. It is a bit lengthy, but we'll mention briefly. Any community, caste, religion or linguistics creating bitterness, tension among these groups are not allowed. Under Section 123 of RP Act, then, in order to gain votes, spreading of caste and communal feelings to gain votes, then making use of religious places such as temples, churches, mosque or any other religious places, cannot be a forum for spreading election propagandas are not allowed. And obviously, bribery of voters to gain votes are not allowed. Intimidation of voters are not allowed, that is, directing them to vote or not vote for a candidate or parties are not allowed. Voter impersonation is not allowed, that is, going to vote in place of someone by some other person using fake IDs, etc. are not allowed. On the polling day, within 100-meter radius of the polling station, there can be no vote campaign. Then, regarding the public meetings for votes, right from the ending of polls on the polling day, that is from the closing of polling booth, no public meeting can be done after 48 hours after closing of polls. But due to COVID-19, ECI may extend it up to 72 hours, that is 3 days. Then, transportation and conveyance of voters to and from polling stations by any candidate or political parties are not allowed. One very important point is that attempts to disturb a public meeting of candidate or political parties by another candidate or political parties is not allowed. Or disturbing processions or disturbing public meetings, that may be by making unnecessary questions or creating tensions or quarrels are not allowed. Removing posters of candidates or political parties by another candidates or political parties are not allowed. Here, one thing I want to say to all candidates or political parties or organizers is that if any of such said incidents occur, such as creating disturbances or problems by some other candidates or political parties or persons, then the organizer should inform the police and let them take the appropriate actions. Don't take up actions by yourself. Then, right from 48 hours before polling day, no liquors can be distributed. Now, let's see how ECI try to enforce all of these rules through CEOs. Firstly, there will be transfer and posting of election-related officials. Then, meetings with candidates, political parties will be done by CEO, mentioning do's and don'ts. Then, we'll inform candidates or political parties not to make new announcements on schemes, projects, etc. Then, new committees will be formed to do thorough checking. Plus, many sectoral magistrates will be formed. Then, videography team, action teams will be there. Through all of these modes, we will look into violations affecting problems exist, etc. On the other hand, ministers and those in power cannot give or take new financial grants. No new promises, no foundation stones due to MCC. Cannot promise new road plans. That is simply no actions which could relate to acquitting voters can't be done. In the next part, mainly, from all departments, a list of all works which have already started or not started will be taken. This will help DEOs and CEOs in the verification process if any complaints arises in the future. Then, recruitments, promotions cannot be done without the permission of the CEO. Lastly, one important thing is about advertisement. As everyone knows, advertisements, hoardings showing ministers and political parties or candidates are not allowed after MCC. Government departments can't show any achievement that involves any minister but can be done without them. One more important thing is ministers or election-related officials are not allowed for meeting, etc. But in case of natural calamities and disasters, law and order failure, etc., sometimes officials visit of chief minister, ministers of concerned departments can be summoned. Then, regarding requisition government vehicles, no political parties or candidates can use any official vehicles. If used, it should be only for coming and going to office from his home. How much vehicles are needed? Here I want to say something to parties and common people. Maximum allowed vehicles within the periphery of RO/ARO is 3 when going for nomination filing. Permission can be taken from CEO for a vehicle that can go throughout the state. If any political party or candidate wants to use any school or college premises for organizing public meetings and purposes, but they shouldn't disturb the normal academic calendar of the school. That is, announcing holidays, etc. And NOC, that is, no objection certificate from school management, prior permission needed to be taken. Permission to be given in the first come first served system to all the candidates or political parties applied. No party can do monopoly on such things, need to monitor closely. Then, using of Indian national flag. In processions or rally, yes, it can be used, but strict compliance of flag code must be observed. If they goes against this code, they can be punished. Now, how big flags of parties can be? Any political parties or candidates, supporters, workers can put flags, hoardings, banners in their homes or in his places. But it should be voluntarily, without giving trouble to others. He or she have to keep in mind that when I raise a flag, it wouldn't make troubles to others. By voluntarily, what it means is with total agreement by the person but not by some other person in his place. Now, how much party flags are needed by a supporter allowed? 3 number are allowed. While in processions, in 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers or e-rickshaws, here the allowed flags is of size 1 feet by half feet maximum, no banners. If a road show is organized, a banner can be used of size 6 feet by 4 feet. Sticks and poles of flags can't be more than 3 meters. No spot or focus, flashing, searchlight and hooters are not allowed. Special accessories like cap, mask, scarf distributions are permitted. But man apparels like sari, shirt, pants, etc. are not permitted. Loudspeakers. Use of loudspeakers are allowed, but it shall not use at night between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Permissions to be taken from DEOs then. No loudspeakers are allowed post 72 hours from the closing of polls. Defacement of government properties, painting, pasting, etc. are not allowed. From announcement of MCC, public properties such as telephone poles, wires, no pasting paintings allowed here. Private properties without consent are not allowed then. After the ending of polls, during those 72 hours, for any purpose, no persons from other constituencies are not allowed in the premises. If any constituency, police will verify this and must follow these instructions strictly. This is what we know as Code of Conduct. It is a very lengthy document. One thing I want to request to everyone is to go to ECI website and read it thoroughly for better awareness and understanding, and help yourself, family, and society as a whole. By watching and understanding the points, in this coming election, I want to request all to help us conduct this election smoothly, making it a free and fair election.